Now that the Culling Games arc is finally getting animated, I felt like it was only right I'd make a video about JJK. Also very fitting that my first anime video is about JJK. I've been one of the biggest fans of JJK for about 3 years now, so I'm very happy to finally get to make a video about it. But enough yapping, let's do this. As you all saw from the title, we are talking about Culling Games Megumi versus Culling Games Yuji. Now, big spoiler warning for my anime watchers going forward, because I'll be using one of the fights from Culling Games to provide a lot of my feats. Lastly, this is not gonna be an insane power scaling where I calculate the speed of this and that and I use maths, and it's like, we are not doing that, okay? It's just gonna be like hypotheticals and chain scaling, so just a heads up. And to keep this fair, we will be using Culling Games Yuji before Sukuna takes over Megumi's body, obviously. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. There are 3 main arguments that come up every time I bring up the topic of Culling Games Megumi beating Culling Games Yuji. It's always, Yuji is so much more physically stronger and will simply just blitz Megumi. Megumi went high diff with Reggie. Yuji has the higher battle IQ. Hopefully, by the end of this video, I can convince you guys that Culling Games Megumi, despite the difference in physicals, can use his battle IQ and versatile abilities to not only bridge the physical gap to defeat Culling Games Yuji, but that it isn't even close at all. And I know that sounds wild, but hear me out, guys. Let's address the first argument people bring up. Yuji is so much more stronger and will just blitz Megumi. So let's talk about Yuji's relevant feats. And I mean, this guy's resume is simply impressive. I mean, he's only been like, what, 4 months, I think, into Jujutsu. He has lifted cars easily, he's thrown them at enemies, not to mention he is relative to a pre-awakened Maki. But this was only during Shibuya because during the Itadori extermination arc, Choso stated that Yuji has become stronger and basically a demon god. And although this is a really cool statement, there's not much that we can use this for in relevant feats. We're just going to assume for the sake of the video, and also because Choso low-key be glazing his brothers. That Itadori did become stronger than his Shibuya self, but not by a big margin. He did surprise and keep up with Yuta a bit, but Yuta was holding back, so there's not really much we can get from that. Due to the fact there's not much feats in the Culling Games for Yuji pre-Sukuna's takeover, this is as far as I can talk about Yuji's relevant feats. Just keep in mind he is a decent bit stronger than the pre-awakened Maki. And please guys, do not take this as me saying Yuji doesn't have good feats. It's just that most of his feats aren't really relevant in this video. For example, you could say Yuji was able to easily react to a stacking full blood Choso, who was able to react to a Naoya, who was relative to a just slightly awakened Maki. But the problem is Naoya was holding back against Choso due to underestimating him, so the Yuji feat now doesn't really hold much weight, neither does it tell us anything. But let's move on to Megumi's physical feats. Now there seems to be some sort of confusion among a lot of JJK fans that Megumi is physically weak, which is simply just straight up untrue. Like, yes, obviously I agree Yuji is 100% physically stronger and faster, but not by the insane gap most people seem to think. One of the most obvious and underlooked feats is that a weakened Megumi was able to handle the weight of 3 cars. Yes, 3 cars, 2.4 tons, for a decent amount of time when Reggie dropped them on him during his domain expansion. We also have a weakened Megumi reacting to a bloodlusted Toji during the Shibuya arc. You can make the argument that he was predicting where Toji would attack and then dodging it, but it doesn't change the fact that he was able to do this against Toji's speed, which we all know is clearly much higher than Yuji's at this point in the story. He proceeds to evade Toji multiple times, by the way, while being fatigued from his previous fights and low on cost energy. And as we know, cost energy is needed for cost energy reinforcement. So despite Megumi being low on cost energy, he was still able to predict and dodge a bloodlusted Toji for a while, which I think we can all agree is a massive feat for Megumi. Sure, he wasn't able to land a clear hit on Toji, but he at least managed to scratch his shirt. Which, yes, I know, it sounds like a silly feat, like, why are you telling me he scratched his shirt? But if he can do that to Toji of all people while being fatigued and low on CE, he can most definitely react and possibly land clear hits on a Culling Games Yuji. So, now that we've established that the physical difference between Yuji and Megumi isn't big enough for Yuji to just simply blitz Megumi, let's move on to the next argument that JJK fans bring up. Megumi went high diff with Reggie. Quick reminder for those who forgot, Reggie is a reincarnated sorcerer that showed up during the Culling Games and died at the hand of Megumi. But to debunk this argument, we also have to look at the context of what happened right before the Reggie fight. It wasn't a one-on-one from the very beginning, it was a 4v1, where Megumi suffered multiple explosions, could barely stand, and then got stabbed from behind. Megumi only received all of these hits due to the fact that he was holding back, not wanting to kill them yet because he needed the points. All in all, when he finally engaged Reggie in a true 1v1, he was physically and cost energy exhausted, which even Reggie notices and calls it out. People also underestimate Reggie for some reason. Like, he was an all-rounder sorcerer, great physicals, was able to withstand 6 tons of force, one of the best battle IQ in the series, and a technique that was difficult to predict against. Even Megumi praises his physical abilities, and we've only seen him compliment a few people when it came to physical skills like Sukuna, Toji, Yuji. Not to mention, Reggie already showed high-level techniques like Hollow Wicker Basket. He was most certainly a formidable opponent. The fight between Megumi and Reggie was simply one where Reggie had the immense advantage of being rested, while Megumi was not only tired, but also injured, and yet he still managed to win. Now, let's imagine what a fully rested and non-injured Megumi, who didn't have to fight a 4v1 previous to that, would do. Saying Megumi went high diff with Reggie is not only ignoring the context surrounding the fight, but also ignoring the strength that Reggie had. Now that we've established Reggie wasn't a pushover opponent and that Megumi certainly didn't go extreme depth, it is time to move on to the final argument. Yuji has the higher battle IQ. This is quite literally the easiest argument to debunk in the whole video, and it's also going to be the shortest section, clearly. Megumi scored higher than Yuji on the ability to use CE and CT. He also scored higher than Yuji on the class test too. Even if you disregard that and you ask for more practical examples, during Shibuya when Megumi and Yuji fought that one inverse guy, Megumi is the one who figures out the enemy CT first, CT's cost energy, and he comes up with a plan to take him down. Megumi has literally figured out almost every single opponent CT he has faced in like 2 minutes, while coming up with a plan to take them down. Yuji needed help from Mekamaru with coming up with a plan to defeat Choso. I think anyone who actually believes Yuji has the better battle IQ than Megumi, who has consistently over and over and over again showcased his amazing battle IQ, you're just consuming too much agenda memes, honestly. Like, agenda memes has fooled you guys into thinking Megumi is a 3rd grade cost level. Like, come on guys, let's be serious. Now that we've debunked the common misconceptions among JJK fans about Culling Games Yuji versus Culling Games Megumi, here is how I believe Megumi could pull this win off. We all know Yuji is a very straightforward person when it comes to his bag of attacks. At this point in the story, he's simply a punch-kick merchant, unfortunately, but him being a punch-kick merchant is very weak against versatile ability characters like Megumi. If you look at Yuji's previous fights, he tends to get into fights where the opponent is limited in the cost technique and forced to engage him in solely a punch and kick fight. Some examples being Mahito not being able to use idle transfiguration on him because of Sukuna, and Choso having to fight Yuji in the bathroom and not being able to fully utilize his blood technique. I think Megumi would just engage in a similar tactic as he did with the 3-finger Sukuna in season 1, where he just keep bombarding him with Shikigamis one after the other while also joining the attack himself. I imagine this would be the most effective strategy and would very much lead to a win for Megumi in a mid-diff situation where the Demon Dog will end up being the final hit. In the unlikely case that doesn't work, then he can just employ a similar strategy like he used on Reggie, which is luring him to a closed area so he can pull off his incomplete domain expansion. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, Yuji knows Megumi has an incomplete domain, so he'd never fall for that. Yuji knows absolutely zero, and I mean zero, about barrier techniques at this point in the story. He didn't even know Sukuna's domain was an open domain, even after knowing about barrier techniques. I'm sure to him all he knows is that Megumi's domain expansion is weird, basically. And I 100% believe Megumi could trick him anyways to entering a closed space, considering he has the much better battle IQ out of the two. Upon casting his incomplete domain, Megumi easily wins. I don't think there should be any debate out there whatsoever. His domain is just so broken, and Yuji has literally nothing in his bag that can counter it. Not only would the domain make Yuji slower, but it will also make Megumi operate at a 120% of his potential while using his Shikigamis effectively. Basically, GG's at this point. Basically, it's just gonna be a no-diff fight. At the end of the day, I believe Culling Games Megumi would be the winner of this fight, no matter what strategy or technique he uses. But I hope I was able to lift up the agenda filter from you guys' eyes and show you Megumi is not a bomb. He is not a fraud, and he's actually pretty strong. Let me know if you guys have any problems with the feats, and peace out, y'all.